The text message came through at 12:34 in the afternoon, and I remember the exact time because I had just checked the clock on my computer, wondering when the furnace guy was going to wrap up downstairs. It was from an unknown number. "Mr. Oakes, can you come down here? There's something you need to see." I figured it was bad news about the furnace. Cracked heat exchanger. Bad blower motor. Something expensive. I typed back, "Is it beyond repair?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "It's not about the furnace. There's a door back here behind your storage shelves. It has 4 padlocks on it from the outside. Did you know about this?" I read that twice. I texted back, "There's no door down there. You must be looking at the wall paneling." His reply came immediately. "Sir, I'm looking right at it, and I can hear something inside, like movement. You really need to come down." I was out of my chair before I finished reading the message. "My name is Leonard Oakes. I'm 61 years old. I'm a CPA, been doing taxes and bookkeeping for small businesses out of my home office in Columbus, Ohio for over 30 years. Quiet career, steady income, nothing dramatic, nothing unpredictable. That's how I built my life, and that's how I liked it. I had been married to Norma for 38 years. We raised 2 kids in this house. Our daughter Diane is a nurse out in Portland. Our son Philip is a structural engineer down in Charlotte. Both settled, both doing well. Life was predictable, and I thought that was something to be grateful for. The morning it all fell apart started the same as any other February Tuesday in Columbus. The temperature had dropped to about -20 overnight, and I woke up to a cold house. Our furnace had quit sometime while I was sleeping. I called Hartwell Heating and Cooling right after my first cup of coffee. They said they could send someone out by noon. Norma had left 3 days earlier to visit Diane in Portland. Diane had just had her first baby, and Norma wanted to be there to help with the first few weeks. I told her I'd be fine on my own. I was, until I wasn't. The technician showed up right at noon. His name was Roland Finley. Young guy, maybe 28, with a heavy toolbox and the kind of easy confidence that comes from actually knowing what you're doing. I led him down to the basement, showed him where the furnace room was, and went back upstairs to my office to finish a quarterly report for one of my clients. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with that text. I came down the stairs faster than I had moved in years. Roland was standing near the far wall, the one behind the metal shelving units Norma used for holiday storage. He had pulled one of the units away from the wall to access the ductwork behind it. That's when he found it, a wooden door painted the same flat gray as the cinder block walls. If you weren't looking for it, you would walk right past it. We had walked right past it, apparently for years, but what stopped me cold were the locks. 4 heavy padlocks, all engaged, running down the outside of the door frame, not on the inside. On the outside, "I've never seen this before," I said. My voice came out quieter than I expected. Roland looked at me steadily. "You didn't install this?" "No. We haven't done any work on this basement since we bought the house." I stepped closer and put my hand flat on the wood, solid, real. Then I heard it too. A faint shuffle from the other side, the kind of sound a person makes when they shift their weight on a cot or a hard floor. "Hello?" I called out. My voice cracked on the word, "Is someone in there?" Silence, but the held kind of silence. The kind where someone on the other side is deciding whether to answer. Roland already had his phone in his hand. "Mr. Oakes, we need to call the police right now." I held up a hand. "Give me 1 minute." I don't know exactly why I said that, instinct maybe. Something in my gut told me I needed to control what happened next, or at least some small piece of it. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder app. I pressed record and slipped the phone into my chest pocket with the microphone facing out. Then I called Norma. She picked up on the 4th ring, cheerful, relaxed. "Hey, how's the furnace situation?" "Norma?" I kept my voice as steady as I could. "There's a door in our basement behind the storage shelves. It has 4 padlocks on the outside. Do you know anything about this?" The line went completely silent, not just quiet. Everything stopped. I couldn't even hear background noise from Diane's place anymore. She had moved somewhere private. When she spoke again, her voice had changed entirely. Flat, careful, like she was choosing every word before she let it out. "Leonard, do not open that door." My stomach dropped through the floor. "Norma, what is going on? Who is in there?" I said, "Don't open it. Just wait until I get home. We can talk about this when I'm back." "Talk about what?" "There is someone locked in our basement." A long pause, then barely above a whisper. 4 years. The room went sideways on me. "Who is it?" I said. "Leonard, please. Just trust me. Don't open that door. Don't call anyone. I'm booking a flight right now. I'll be home tonight. We can handle this together." "Handle what, Norma?" "Who is behind that door?" "If you call anyone," she said, and her voice went cold in a way I had never heard from her in 38 years. "You will regret it. I'm begging you. Please wait for me." I hung up. I looked at Roland. "Call 911. 2 patrol cars pulled up within 15 minutes. Officers Bernard Pruitt and Alvin Stacy came through the front door, introduced themselves, and followed me straight down to the basement. Roland was still there, standing near the shelving unit, arms crossed, saying nothing. He looked like a man who had walked into something he was never going to forget. Officer Pruitt crouched down and examined each of the 4 padlocks one by one. He did not touch them yet. He just looked. Then he stood up and turned to me. "Mr. Oakes, do you have keys for these locks?" "No. I didn't know this door existed until an hour ago." He looked at Stacy. Something passed between them without either one saying a word. Stacy put his hand on my arm and guided me toward the stairs. "Sir, I need you upstairs with me while Officer Pruitt handles this. I want to take your full statement." I sat at my kitchen table and told Stacy everything. The furnace call, Roland's text, the door, the 4 locks, the phone call to Norma, and exactly what she said. He wrote it all down in a small notebook without looking up. When I finished, he asked me to walk him through the phone call again, slower this time, making sure he had her exact words. She said, "Do not open that door," I told him. Then she said, "If you call anyone, you will regret it." Stacy looked up from his notebook, then, just for a second. Pruitt called up from the basement about 20 minutes later. They had brought bolt cutters from one of the patrol cars. It took nearly 20 minutes to work through all 4 locks. I could hear the metal giving way from the kitchen, one lock at a time, each one hitting the concrete floor with a sound I can still hear clearly if I let myself think about it. When Pruitt called me back downstairs, I went. Stacy started to say something about waiting upstairs, and I told him no, this was my house. Whatever was behind that door, I was going to see it. Pruitt pushed the door open slowly. Stale air rolled out of the room, thick and close, the smell of somewhere that had been sealed for a long time. He swept his flashlight across the space before either of us stepped inside. It was small, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. Along one wall, a cot, neatly made with a gray wool blanket folded across the foot of it. A battery-powered lamp on a folding table. Stacks of paperback books on the floor, 2 or 3 dozen of them at least. Notebooks filled with handwriting, a bucket in the corner with a lid clamped down tight, and sitting on the edge of that cot, blinking against the sudden light with his hands braced on his knees, was my brother Clifford. I had not seen him in 4 years, because 4 years ago Norma sat across from me at our kitchen table and told me his body had been found in the Scioto River. She said the condition of the remains meant a closed casket was necessary, she cried. She held my hand. She helped me write the obituary. I stood in that doorway and looked at my brother, and I could not make a sound. He looked terrible. His hair had gone completely gray, though he was only 56. He had lost at least 40 pounds. His skin was pale in a way that did not look like skin anymore, more like paper. His hands trembled slightly where they rested on his knees, but it was him. The same jaw, the same way he held his shoulders, the same eyes that had followed me around our parents' backyard when we were kids. "Leonard," he said. His voice was rough and low, like something that had not been used properly in a long time. "You found me. I do not remember exactly what happened in the next few minutes. I know Pruitt was on his radio calling for an ambulance and backup. I know Stacy came down the stairs and stopped at the door. I know Roland was somewhere behind all of us, still holding his toolbox, and later he told me he just stood there because he did not know what else to do." The paramedics arrived and moved in quickly. They got Clifford onto a stretcher and started checking his vitals and getting fluids into him. "Malnourished," they said. "Dehydrated, significant vitamin D deficiency. Muscle atrophy in his legs from limited movement, but alive." After 4 years in a 10 by 10 room with no windows and 4 locks on the outside of the door, he was alive. I followed the stretcher up the stairs and out through the front door. The cold air hit me like a wall. I stood on the front porch and watched them load my brother into the ambulance, and I thought about the eulogy I had given for him. I had stood at the front of a church and talked about what kind of man he was. I had talked about his laugh, the way he could fix anything mechanical with whatever happened to be nearby, the way he always called me on my birthday even when things between us were complicated. The funeral had been held at a church about 3 miles from this house. The reception was in the church basement. Clifford had been locked in our basement at the time, listening through the floor and the walls to whatever sounds traveled down from the room above him, while I stood at a podium and told 60 people that my brother was gone. I sat down on the porch steps because my legs stopped working the way they were supposed to. Pruitt came and sat next to me. He did not say anything for a while. Then he said, "Mr. Oakes, where is your wife right now?" "Portland?" I said. "She's booking a flight back." He nodded slowly. "We're going to need to speak with her." I know, I said. She'll be landing at Columbus Airport tonight. He nodded again and stood up. I sat there on the cold steps for another minute. Then I took out my phone and called Howard Greer. Howard Greer had been my attorney for about 12 years. I had used him mostly for business contracts and one property dispute back in 2015. He was the kind of lawyer who picked up on the first ring and listened without interrupting. I told him what had happened, all of it. The door, the locks, Clifford, the phone call with Norma, the recording on my phone. When I finished, there was a short pause on his end. Leonard, stay exactly where you are. Do not touch anything in that basement, and do not speak to Norma again without me present. She's on a flight back tonight. I know. Listen to me carefully. Do you have access to your joint accounts from your phone? Yes. Do not touch them. I'm going to make some calls in the next 30 minutes. We need a court order to freeze those accounts before she lands. Can you text me the account numbers? I went to my office and pulled them up and sent them to him. While I was sitting at my desk, I noticed my hands were still shaking. I had not noticed that before. Howard called back in 20 minutes. He had reached a judge. He knew an emergency freeze on all joint accounts was being processed. He also told me something I had not known. Norma had contacted a real estate agent earlier that week about listing our house. Howard had found out through a colleague whose office shared a floor with the agency she had called. She had done it while she was in Portland 3 days after she left. She had been planning to come home, sell the house, and move the money before any of this surfaced. That was the only explanation that made sense. I sat in my office chair and stared at the wall for a while. The detective who took over the case from Pruitt and Stacy was named Vickers. He came by the house later that afternoon and sat at my kitchen table with a recorder between us. He asked me to go through everything again from the beginning, and I did. When I got to the part about the phone call, he asked if I had recorded it. I put my phone on the table and played it back. He listened to the whole thing without moving. When it finished, he looked at me and said, "Mr. Oakes, that recording is going to matter a great deal." Officers were waiting at the gate when Norma's flight landed at Columbus Airport that evening. She did not run. She did not make a scene, according to Vickers, who called me afterward. She walked toward them like she had been expecting it, like she had spent the whole flight preparing herself. She did not deny anything. What came out over the following days, through Clifford's testimony at the hospital and through the investigation, was this. 4 years ago, Clifford had been going through a bad stretch. His marriage of 18 years had ended. A real estate partnership he had been part of had collapsed, and he had lost most of what he had saved. He came to us for help. He needed a loan to get back on his feet, something to cover rent and expenses while he rebuilt. I had been in Chicago for a week-long accounting conference when he came by. Norma was home alone. She invited him in and made him tea. That was the last thing Clifford remembered before waking up in that room. Norma had built the room 2 years before Clifford ever knocked on our door. She had hired a contractor while I was away on a business trip, paying him in cash and telling him it was going to be a wine cellar. The ventilation system was disguised as a dryer vent on the exterior of the house. The soundproofing had been done in layers over 2 separate visits, spread out enough that none of it looked unusual from the outside. She had been planning it for a long time. She just needed the right person and the right moment. When Clifford woke up in that room, Norma came to the door and explained it to him through the wood. She told him he had always been a problem, that I had spent the better part of my adult life worrying about him, helping him, lending him money he never fully paid back. She told him she was protecting our retirement, protecting me from my own inability to say no to family. She said she had already reported him missing to the police, that his car had been found near the river, that within a year or two he would be declared legally dead and everyone who had known him would grieve and move on. She also told him that if he made any noise, any attempt to get help, she would make sure I did not wake up one morning. She did not say it dramatically. She said it the way you might mention that rain was coming. Then she showed him news stories on her phone through the gap under the door. Stories about sudden deaths, unexplained accidents, husbands who had simply stopped breathing in their sleep. She told him it would not be hard. A little something in the coffee, easy enough to make look natural. Clifford believed her. He knew Norma well enough to know she was not the kind of person who said things she did not mean. So he stayed quiet. For 4 years he stayed quiet. In the first days of his confinement, Norma slipped a document under the door, a legal form already filled out. She told him to sign it. It was a waiver of his inheritance rights from our parents' estate. A modest sum, maybe $40,000, that Clifford had been set to receive. He signed it without hesitating. He told me later he would have signed anything at that point. That signed document became one of the most important pieces of evidence at trial. It proved the financial motive had existed from the beginning. This had never been just about protecting our marriage. It had always been about money. What nobody knew at the time, not even me, was that Norma had also changed the beneficiary on Clifford's life insurance policy to herself before he disappeared. 2 years after he was reported missing and declared legally dead, she collected $85,000 from that policy. She had deposited it into a personal account I did not have access to in amounts small enough not to trigger any automatic reporting. Howard found out about that account 2 days after the arrest. That was when the insurance fraud charge was added to the list. The trial lasted 11 days. The courtroom was full every morning. The prosecutor laid it out piece by piece. The room built 2 years before Clifford arrived. The contractor paid in cash. The ventilation system disguised as a dryer vent. The insurance beneficiary changed 6 months before Clifford disappeared. The $85,000 collected from his policy after he was declared dead. The personal account Norma had kept hidden from me for years. The real estate inquiry made from Portland 3 days before everything came apart, and then the recording. Howard had worked with the prosecution to have it admitted as evidence. When they played it in the courtroom, the room went completely still. Norma's voice came through the speakers clearly. "Do not open that door." And then a few seconds later, "If you call anyone, you will regret it." I was sitting in the third row. I watched the jury while the recording played. Not one of them moved. Norma's attorney tried a diminished capacity defense. He brought in a psychologist who talked about obsessive protective behavior and distorted thinking patterns. The prosecutor spent about 40 minutes dismantling that argument by walking the jury through the timeline. The room had been built 2 years in advance. The insurance beneficiary had been changed months before Clifford came to our door. The inheritance waiver had been prepared and ready to slide under a door on day 1. The hidden account had been carefully managed in small deposits over 2 years to avoid detection. None of that is diminished capacity. All of it is planning. The judge said as much during sentencing. She described Norma's conduct as representing a chilling and sustained absence of empathy, carried out with a level of deliberateness she had rarely encountered in her time on the bench. She sentenced Norma to 27 years for unlawful confinement, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial fraud. The court also ordered full restitution of the $85,000. I transferred every cent of it to Clifford's name the week after sentencing. Clifford spent 3 months in the hospital. The physical recovery was hard and slow. His muscles had wasted from years of limited movement. His bone density was compromised. He had several vitamin deficiencies that took months of treatment to correct. He could not walk more than half a block without stopping when he was first discharged. The psychological damage was harder to measure and harder to treat. He could not be in enclosed spaces without his breathing going wrong. Even hospital rooms triggered it, and those had open doors and windows. His therapist told me early on that recovery from something like this is not a straight line. There are good stretches, and then there are weeks where everything slides backward for no clear reason. Diane flew in from Portland the day after the arrest. Philip drove up from Charlotte that same night. The 4 of us sat in a hospital waiting room together for the first time in years, and nobody said much. There was not a lot to say. We were all trying to fit what we knew about Norma into the same space as what she had done, and it did not fit. It still does not fit, not completely, even now. The kids had grown up calling her mom. They had holidays with her, phone calls, the ordinary texture of a family that seemed like it was working. Philip went quiet for months after the arrest. Diane had panic attacks for a while. They both went to therapy. We all did. I stayed in Columbus while Clifford was in the hospital. I went every day. At first, we did not talk much. I would sit in the chair next to his bed and he would sleep or stare at the ceiling, and I would just be there. After a few weeks, he started talking more. He told me things in pieces, not all at once. Some of it I had already heard from Vickers or the prosecutors. Some of it I had not. He told me about the sounds. He said the hardest part was not the dark or the cold or the silence. It was hearing me upstairs, hearing me walk across the kitchen floor in the morning, hearing the TV in the evenings, hearing me laugh at something or talk on the phone or just move through the house living my life 20 feet above him while he sat in that room unable to make a sound. He said there were nights when he almost broke, when the need to just yell, to bang on the walls and make me hear him became almost impossible to push back down. But every time he got close to that edge, he thought about what Norma had said, about how easy it would be, and he pulled himself back. He stayed quiet for 4 years to keep me alive. I have a hard time finding words for what that means to me, so most of the time I do not try. What I keep coming back to is the funeral. I gave that eulogy on a Saturday morning in October. The church was a few miles from our house. I stood at the front of the room and I talked for about 8 minutes about who Clifford was. I talked about the summer he taught me to change the oil in my first car. I talked about the way he showed up at my office the week I almost lost my biggest client and just sat with me until I had worked through it. I talked about how he called every year on my birthday without fail, even during the years when we had not spoken much. Then I sat in a pew and cried for my brother in front of 60 people who had come to do the same. The reception was downstairs in the church basement. People ate sandwiches and drank coffee and talked about Clifford in the past tense, while he was locked in our basement listening to whatever sounds carried through the walls and the floor. I have gone over that day many times since. I cannot get past it. I do not think I'm supposed to. It has been 3 years since that February morning. Clifford lives in an apartment about 12 minutes from my house. Ground floor unit, big windows, no interior locks on any of the doors. He picked it specifically for those reasons. He has gained back most of the weight he lost. His hair is still gray, but it was already heading that way before any of this. He walks every morning now, a few miles through the neighborhood, something his therapist encouraged, and that he has kept up on his own. He is writing a book. A full account of what happened in his own words from his own perspective. His therapist says the writing helps him take ownership of the experience instead of letting the experience own him. I have read a few chapters. It is honest in a way that is hard to read, but it is his story to tell, and I think telling it is doing him good. We have dinner every Sunday. We take turns cooking, which means I make chili and he makes everything else because he turned out to be a genuinely good cook, something I never knew about him before. Sometimes we talk about the 4 years. More often we talk about other things. The Bengals, his book, my grandkids, Philip's new house in Charlotte, the kind of conversation two brothers in their late 50s and early 60s are supposed to be having. Roland Finley moved to Asheville about a year after everything happened. He told me he could not do HVAC work anymore without thinking about that basement every time he moved a shelving unit or checked behind a wall. He sends me a Christmas card every year. I send one back. That seems like the right thing to do for a man who showed up to fix a furnace and ended up changing everything. I kept the house. I thought about selling it for a while. I walked through every room trying to decide if I could still live here knowing what had been happening 20 feet below me for 4 years. In the end, I decided to stay. I repainted the basement. I had the room properly opened up and converted into storage with no door at all, just open shelving along the wall. The house did not do anything wrong. It was just a house. I divorced Norma, though. It felt like a formality given that she is serving 27 years in a federal facility in southeastern Ohio. She has written me letters that I have not opened. Her attorney forwards them with notes saying she wants to explain herself, wants me to understand her reasoning. I have thought about reading them. I have decided not to. There's no explanation that changes what Clifford lost. There is no reasoning that gives him back 4 years. What I think about most when I let myself think about it is the trust. Not the betrayal, but the trust. I had handed it over completely and without condition, the way you do after enough years with someone, the way it starts to feel not like a choice but just like the shape of things. Norma had taken that trust and used it as a tool. She used it to move freely through our house, to manage our finances, to keep me comfortable and unquestioning, while she maintained a crime in the room below us. I was not stupid. I was not weak. I was trusting, and I had given that trust to the wrong person. The detective who worked the case told me something in the weeks after the arrest that has stayed with me. He said that in his experience, the people who cause the most damage are almost never strangers. They are the ones who have been given access, who have been trusted with the inside of your life, your home, your routines, your blind spots. Most people who are given that kind of access never abuse it. But when someone does, the harm is catastrophic precisely because you did not see it coming, because you were not looking. Clifford is sitting across from me right now. We are at a diner on Broad Street, a place we started coming to about a year ago because the coffee is good and the booths are wide and nobody bothers you. He has a legal pad in front of him and he is working on a chapter. He looked up a minute ago and caught me watching him. He smiled. Not a big one, but real. That smile cost us both more than anyone should ever have to pay. But it is there, and so is he. If you're watching this and something in your life feels off, do not wait for a broken furnace to find out why. If the person you share your home with is keeping doors closed that used to be open, ask why. If the explanations feel thin, if the patterns have changed, if your gut is telling you something does not add up, listen to it. I ignored every sign because I had decided years before that trust meant not looking. I was wrong about that. Trust is not the same as blindness. Pay attention to the people you love. Ask the questions, because the truth has a way of coming out eventually. I only wish it had come out sooner.